Welcome to Project Success Stories. It's the first episode, and I'm really excited to have Melanie McBride from Intel, Senior Technical Project Manager. Melanie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks.
And Melanie is also the author of Managing Projects in the Real World. What an exciting thing to have your own book. Tell us about it.
I started writing blogs at Intel internally, and people seemed to like them. Eventually I had a large amount of content, and I ended up packaging it as a book, and it's doing fairly well.
That's exciting. Now tell me about the title. In the Real World seems
So you read a lot of stuff about project management, and it's all very good, but it doesn't, you still walk away going, well, how do I really do that? How do I manage a stakeholder? What actually do I have to do? So the focus of the blog and then of the book is actionable ideas, how you really do these things in a chaotic, dynamic environment where, you know, the rules are different, people are difficult, you know, coworkers are crazy, budgets are tight, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what the book is about.
Well, if this were a different show, I would ask you which of those coworkers are crazy, but we're going to keep it, we'll keep it professional here.
Okay.
I gotta say, I really appreciate one of the sections of the book. You talk about the challenges of building out a schedule.
Right, yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about.
That's another one of those areas where there's just a ton of content out there about how to do it. But until you start grinding through it, it's very difficult. You throw in some software like Microsoft Project or Protein or something, and it becomes even harder because these tools are easy to put data in, but if you don't understand the mechanics of how to build a schedule, they're just a horrible exercise in frustration. So, so I spent a whole chapter on how do you actually do a schedule in a place where people maybe don't know all the work content, how do you estimate, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the real world.
Okay.
And talk about the reality that many of our counterparts across different organizations struggle with. The challenges of something like Waterfall Methodology, and you know where I'm going with this,
yeah,
the agile.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think they're both tools, right? And the idea is use the right tool for the right job. So you have scenarios where agile works very, very well. You also have scenarios where waterfall works very well. And I know that this is an area where a lot of people have very polarized opinions, but I view it as it's just a tool. Do you use the hammer or do you use the sledge? It depends on what you want to do. Are you knocking down a wall or are you hanging pictures? So I think that this whole debate misses the point. I think they're very good at what they do. I think a harder real-world challenge is how do you integrate at like a program level where you've got projects running agile, you've got projects doing waterfall, the timing, the planning time frames are very different, so how do you integrate that? I think that's a much more interesting question.
Okay, well let's pull on that thread a little bit. How do you mix together or integrate those?
Well, you know, I don't know that I have an answer there. I know that you know, I work in a co-located team, which is unusual, right? So we have a high degree of communication, and we still have communication messes around this interface. You know, the Agile team, they're turning out a release every month. My projects will take maybe 6 months. So if I need a feature implemented, I can tell them 6 months ahead I want this feature, but, you know, all the things have to be perfectly organized and aligned for them to have that feature ready. We all know in a perfect world that would just happen, but that's not reality. So just that communication challenge of, did the story get written? Is it when is it going to implement? If I have a late change, how quickly can they, you know, react? And then on the waterfall side, how do you schedule something that's just on a burn down list, right? How do you know when I can get this deliverable? So those are the harder challenges.
Cool. Well, it sounds like this is a success story being written real time.
Let's hope.
And what are the things that you've learned since you started this journey?
Sure. So one thing I think a big takeaway for me is it's pointless to beat on the Agile guys when you're going to have this done when they aren't even seriously considering it for another 3 or 4 iterations. You have to take it on faith. It's in the queue. They're going to get to it. And then you've got to manage the waterfall schedule to manage that risk that they're late or they've forgotten about it or they've had something else come in. So I've actually gone back to using really explicit buffers, which, you know, for a long time that was taboo. That was padding the schedule. And you would go into a program review and they'd go through your dates and they'd just grind out any kind of buffer. Well, I'm kind of going back the other direction. I'm putting buffer in, similar to what I would do like with theory of constraints, right?
You're going old school now.
Well, I don't know that it's old school, it's just a little different. So, you know, you put an explicit buffer of, say, 40 hours in there, and then you decrement that as you get closer, as the risk is done, right? Maybe as the story is slotted for a particular iteration. Maybe you decrement that so that you can reflect that uncertainty and manage that risk, but still be able to have that long-term predictability that Waterfall can give you.
Cool. Now, as you look forward and think about where you might go, what do you think is the story you're going to be able to tell about your current challenge?
I think we're going to, I mean, you know, you hear a lot of people doing Agile, but just a little different, right? They're all modifying it, and they're struggling, and I don't know that they're necessarily, is it any better off in a lot of ways. They're all doing, there's not a lot of people doing really pure, you know, Agile manifesto kind of work. I think what you're going to see is maybe, at least from the product development side, back to that rapid prototyping idea, right? Where you can couple that quick response, you know, get value out of the life cycle earlier, but maybe not have that that long uncertainty that you can get with Agile.
Okay. Let's migrate back to the book now.
Okay.
And talk about, for aspiring authors out there in our audience who think that they have a book inside of them, what's your advice for them?
Just write it. I mean, so I can only speak to my experience, but doing the blog really helped because I got several years down the road and I had all this content to pick and choose from. Plus, you get better as a writer the more you write. So if you make this daily commitment to write something, then, you know, eventually you're going to have enough and enough good stuff to put something together. So I think you just got to start somewhere.
That's fantastic. I'm eager to see what your next book is going to be about.
Okay.
So I want to thank Melanie McBride again, Senior Technical Project Manager at Intel. It's been fantastic having you on the show.
It's been fun.
It's our first show, and on the next episode we'll have Rebecca Knight from SkyTouch Technologies. Stay tuned.